Hi, welcome back to Unit 4, where we're going to talk about the neural processing. Now, if you remember when we were talking about the 7 steps, and we said the first one is the digital stimulus, which is the um, stimulus that is coming from the external environment. For instance, the light that is reflected from the object you're looking at. Um, then the information about that is captured by the photoreceptors, and that's the proximal stimulus. In step 3, we talked about the chemical reactions or the precursors that lead to the transformation of envision it is light energy to electrical signals. Now, what happens afterwards to these electrical signals? That's the story of neural processing. Now, information will go through, remember the retina in case of vision, because that's what we'll focus on in this class. Uh, the information is captured in retina, specifically in this innermost layer called photoreceptor layer. From there, these electrical signals get transmitted to the middle layer of cells called bipolar cells, then to the last layer of cells called ganglionic cells. And from there, the ganglionic cells axons within each eye, they form a bundle and come from the back of the eyes as optic nerve, and from there it goes to different parts of the brain. So what we'll do, and all the processes, all the changes that these electrical signals will go through while they leave once they leave the photoreceptors, those processes are often referred to as neural processes. Changes in terms of increase, decrease in intensity, all the changes that the electrical signals go through once they leave the photoreceptor layer, both within the eye, meaning in the bipolar cell layer, a ganglionic cell layer, and in between other layers, and we'll talk about receptive phase actions over there. And also, once it reaches the optic nerve, it goes through different parts of the brain, LGN, and it goes through. We'll talk about those parts in the next few slides. And as it goes through different parts, you can see the electrical signal gets either amplified or reduced in a way that your experience would be would be mimicked in a way that you'll actually feel like you're experiencing the external stimulus. So these subtle amplifications, subtle changes in the electrical signals patterns while it is going through the different parts of the brain, once it leaves the photoreceptor layer within the eye, beyond the eye, that's the journey that we'll talk about in this unit, the neural processing. So where does this, let's talk about the first question. Where does it go? Where do these signals go once they leave the retina? Within the retina, we already talked about how it goes through 3 different layers. And once it leaves the retina, right, it goes to one part of the thalamus called LGN, lateral geniculate nucleus. Now, this is the first part. It's right here. It's the first part of the thalamus. Usually, all the sensory information, except smell, all sensory information uh, goes to thalamus. Thalamus is a structure which processes, acts like a relay station, processes information and decides where the information should go. Visual information goes to the visual area and so on and so forth. So one part of the thalamus that is specific to processing visual information is the lateral geniculate nucleus, LGN, lateral geniculate nucleus. And that's where the information goes. And from there, different streams of fibers will go through different parts, right? First, the information goes to the what do you say? Visual cortical areas, and there are 4 different areas. Visual cortex number 1, 2, 3, 4, and information goes through these different parts. It can be seen here. It goes through 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the information goes to the temporal and parietal lobes. Do you see that? And I want you to watch the video on the structure of the brain to get some basics taken care of. And this class doesn't allow us enough time for us to go through the structure of the brain and also talk about the pathways, because we'll primarily focus on the perceptual aspect of it. But the basics of the structure of the brain and the anatomy, you need to refresh. So I'm going to add some videos on the coach website. And those are my lecture videos, but from a different class. I want you to watch those videos to get some refresher. And then just in case if you don't remember parts of the brain. Okay, so finally, the information from these two temporal and parietal pathways, right? And it's called ventral visual pathway and the dorsal visual pathway. It's what and where pathway. We'll talk about that. And eventually, it comes to the forebrain, and that's when finally you get this conscious experience and the recognition part. Now, remember we talked about how the receptive fields are, and usually you measure the receptive field by seeing how the structure of the retina reacts to in terms of a single ganglionic cell. For instance, if there is one area on the retina, meaning a group of photoreceptors in the retina, and they get connected to one ganglionic cell, which is a part of which is a part of an optic nerve, right? And that information goes to LGN and different parts of the brain. Now we know that the structure of the receptive field of the ganglionic cell is like a center surround system, right? Where the center and surround are opposite in nature. The center is positive, the surround is negative, the surround is positive, the center is negative, and that's how the structure is. Now, one way of seeing the changes the electrical signals go through while they are going through different parts of the brain is to check the same receptive field nature in terms of the place where you're measuring information. Meaning that if you look at the center surround receptor system in the ganglionic cell, how do you think it would be in the LGN? How it would be in the next part of the brain where the information goes to? That's one way of looking at the changes in the electric field. That also gives us some minute information about the kind of features that we detect from the stimulus when we see something, especially in vision. So one thing you'll see is that the LGN cells also have a similar receptive field as the ganglionic cell, meaning that the process of transfer of signals uh, from ganglionic cells to the LGN doesn't change much. So the information stays pretty much same. So what does the LGN does then? Well, LGN it regulates the neural information from the retina to the visual cortex, meaning that it sorts things out. It groups things out. It kind of if you look at this picture right here, right?